Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 18 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. We are amped up because today we're going to be talking about sacrifice and why it's important. Now, note, this episode is a little bit late, but I think it's worth it because we are full of ideas, and this is going to be a jam-packed episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Indubitably.
All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is, just quickly before we get into all the nitty-gritty stuff about sacrifice, one thing is I went back and I've been thinking about watching other podcasts to, get some ideas. And also, I think that as a creator, you also have to consume a little bit to understand what the space is like. You know what I mean? So I went back and I watched Ryan Higa's podcast because we stopped watching him right before he started uploading.
Yeah.
So when I went back and watched it, I was very interested because when I see other podcasts, I also get an idea on where we're at in our journey, if that makes sense. Because when I looked at it, I saw Ryan just having a good time and just talking with his friends about nothing the whole time, pretty much. It's pretty much just them talking about random stuff the whole time. That's why they called it the Off the Pill podcast, because he doesn't take his ADHD medicine. Yeah. So he just yaps about random stuff. And as I watched it, I was like, maybe we're not so bad. Now, that's not hate to Ryan, obviously, because it's a different demographic and a different idea. But I like the way that we structure our episodes to deliver certain qualities, values, and meaning. So I just was very interested when I went back and reflected on somebody else's experience.
I know, and I think that's actually something you can draw into your own life, in that the way everybody else is doing something is not always going to pertain to you, because they don't have the same goals as you. They don't have the same purpose as you. They're not trying to be you, just as you shouldn't try to be them. Now, like you said, you can draw inspiration from it. What did they do good? See, this is something that they do in schools. They're always like, oh, what did you do good? What did you do bad? I feel like it's not enforced very well, but when you critique something, look at how did they do this good? Could they improve on this? And how can that help me? How can that make me better at my endeavors?
And now, one more note before we continue. My voice sounds kind of weird because I feel like I'm getting sick. In fact, for that reason, we have this cup of tea right here. I hope you can see it. I honestly feel like a philosopher when I'm drinking tea. Today, I sat down and I was just drinking tea, like, just thinking about life. And honestly, it has led me to many great ideas.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how synonymous things become with other things, which leads you to, like, for example, I think actually this is a great thing, is that you guys should go out there and read Atomic Habits, because this is something that it discusses, is that certain places can influence your brain into thinking this is a time for something. So I think in the same way, actions or specific actions can help you tell your brain, like, okay, this is what we're doing now. So when you're sipping that tea, I think you start to calm your mind and you think, or your mind becomes more open to thought. It's the same way that in that one place at the Guilford Library, bro, my brain just opens up and I can see things in the sixth dimension. It's kind of crazy, and I think we tend to associate habits with specific places.
Very interesting. And the last thing I was going to talk about is, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Does scarcity breed value? So what I mean is, do you think that if everyone was a millionaire, if everyone had money, that it would mean the same thing?
No. And I think to the general populace it wouldn't. But to a person striving to be grateful for what they have, it would mean everything. Because somebody that's always chasing the next thing isn't ever going to be content with what they have. People that constantly live with, getting better things are never enjoying what's in their hands right now. So if you have, or I think, okay, maybe I'm getting off topic with the question. I feel like it's more that we usually want something that nobody else has. We want the new iPhone. We want the new McLaren. We want the new Rolex. But it's always to kind of, I think a lot of the times it's associated with status. It's the same way people want money and power, is so they can almost see themselves as above other people. And I think it's like a ego thing. But if you are happy with who you are and you don't need reassurance from other people, then whether you're in a broken down Toyota Camry or you're in Ferrari 812 Superfast, right? It doesn't matter to you.
That's true.
Because you're happy with where you are.
That's true. It was just a question because I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast today.
Yeah.
Really been going deep on the podcast. But as I listened to him, he was talking to Andrew Schultz, and they talked about their experiences going to Dubai, and how he talked to, I think Andrew Schultz talked to a son of a royal family, and he asked, why do you guys have this weird license plate situation where the lower the number of the license plate, the more expensive the plate becomes? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like the number one license plate is obviously the most expensive. So he asked the kid, and the kid said, here, if everyone drives a G-Wagon and a Range Rover, it doesn't mean anything to own a G-Wagon or a Range Rover. So we had to develop a new system to show that wealth. And then that's when Andrew Schultz realized, wait, they're really just doing this to flex. So it's very interesting psychology. And I think that it is true that if you live your life solely for the purpose of chasing the next thing, then it is a meaningless existence. But if you couple that drive to succeed with gratitude, I think that's the perfect balance and the golden life, if you will.
Also, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I found out recently, and I just thought it was a really cool fact, is, when you're greeting a guy, you do, there's a multitude of different head nods that you can use, right? So if you're seeing a friend, what do you do?
Wait, no.
Like somebody you know.
Up?
Yeah, you would go up. You'd be like,
yeah,
what's up, man?
Yeah, okay.
Right? And then if you see somebody you don't know as well, but like, you kind of respect them, what do you do?
The down nod?
Down nod, right? So up is for familiarity, down is for unfamiliarity. Do you know why that is?
Can I guess?
Yeah.
I feel like the down is like tipping your hat off.
No.
Okay, that's what I
down,
thought.
I mean, I'm not sure if this is completely correct. I saw this and I was like, I think this is pretty cool. But the down is to protect your neck. A survival instinct. Someone you don't know, you're not sure, so you tip your head down. But your friend, who you know won't hurt you, you tip up because you're not afraid. And actually, it's something in scouting, if any of you guys have ever done it, is the founder of Scouts, Baden Powell, he was in Africa for a certain amount of time. And in Scouts, it's a big thing is you shake with your left hand. And the reason for that is because while he was in Africa, he would go up to these tribes, and whenever two people from different tribes would go, they have a spear in their right hand and a shield in their left hand. And to show that they trusted the other person, when they went to shake hands, they dropped the shield. In most places, they dropped the weapon and shook with their right hand, still to keep their guard. But instead, in that place in Africa, they believed that you drop your shield to show that you trust the person. And I thought it was kind of a cool parallel. And all these things that we do subconsciously might actually have a root in which it comes from.
Huh. That's actually kind of crazy. I never thought about it that way.
Pretty cool.
Interesting. All right, well, let's get to it. My question to you is, first, as we usually start, how do you define sacrifice? What do you define it as?
I mean, simply, I think it's giving one thing up either for something else. I think it's always for something else, but that something else might not always be for you. Like, I can sacrifice something of myself for your benefit, or, vice versa. Or I could be sacrificing something for myself for something for myself in the future. That sounded like a very big mouthful to say.
Indeed.
But you get my point.
I do. And this was the Google definition when I looked it up, okay? The act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy. Now, there are two words I wanted to draw your attention to in this sentence. The first is valued. So sacrifice means to give something up that you value. Now, that means that it's not giving up something that doesn't have any meaning to you in the first place. It means that that thing that you gave up meant something to you. But you gave it up for the second and more important word, important or worthy. So you have to understand that whatever it is that you're giving up, when you give it up, it'll hurt. Why? Because it's something of value to you. That's what it means to sacrifice. But in return, remember that you're getting something that is important or worthy, something that you truly value. What you deem important or worthy, that's up to you. I can't tell you in this life what will be important to you. But when you find that and you do give up things, don't feel bad, because it might hurt in the beginning because those things meant something to you. But eventually you'll understand that, hey, I gave it up for something more important. And that was just my interpretation of the definition.
Yeah, and I think that the term sacrifice is really it's very broad, because And also, actually, I want to draw big attention to the value part. Like when you said it's about something you value. Because something we've talked about plenty is that many things do not have intrinsic value connected to them. People or things are only as valuable as we are willing to get them for, right? However far we're willing to go to get it is what determines its value for us. So we often think that we're sacrificing such a big thing, but a lot of these things, we are the ones generating the value of it. So to think that letting go of something that you think has value is it's really up to you. Because think about it. A lot of the time, people have a hard time letting go of a bad relationship. Even though they know it's bad for them, they think that, a relationship is a good thing. But why are you assigning value to that relationship even though it's not working? And this could work for anything. This could be a job, a business, something like that. And I'm not saying give up. I would never say give up. But I'd say to understand where are you putting your value. And I didn't want to bring this up so early in the episode because this is something I've been dying to tell you the whole week.
Okay.
And
fire away.
it was on Friday where I was at work and this guy comes in the drive-thru. And I've seen this guy plenty. He orders his food. And we sit there and we're chatting for a little, drive-thru's held up. And then it's a beautiful day outside, super sunny, it's super nice. And I'm sitting there or I'm standing there, I guess. And he says to me, you're missing a very beautiful day out here, kid. And then he drove to the next window. One sentence. That one sentence. I sat there, or stood there, I guess, like this, with my hand over my mouth, exactly like this, thinking about it. And I sat there and I wondered and I thought, is what I do here really worth it? Right? I'm never going to get that day back. I'm never going to get the 6 hours I spent at that shift back. And was it worth it for the whatever $100 I make? And that one thing really had me thinking, is what I'm doing worth it? And of course, people always say, yeah, of course, you should be making money, working your job. And then it started to expand. And I sat there and I thought about everything that I do on a daily basis. And I thought to myself, are these things worth it? And then I asked, is moving to my goal, is the steps I take to it worth it? Is what I'm doing the best way to get there? And I went down this whole rabbit hole of thought. And it led me to one thing and one thing only, is that without a clear outlined purpose, you will sacrifice things that you shouldn't be sacrificing. You will give up things that you shouldn't give up. And this one experience, it really opened my eyes to the fact that there's so many beautiful things around you in life. And every day, you sacrifice something. We don't realize it, but every day you sacrifice something for something else. That time you spent on the Xbox could have been spent with your family. The time you spent, playing basketball could have been spent studying. And that doesn't mean that always do studying and family time. It means to understand that at some point it's going to be gone. So to hold the value for the things that really do matter, right? You may think that playing video games is important right now, but your family's downstairs at that dinner table without you. And they won't always be around. They're not always going to be there to, make dinner for you. They're not always going to be there to smile with you, to hold your hand through all the achievements, and to really be there for you. They're not always going to be there. So when you chose to sit in your room and play your Xbox, you sacrificed the time you could have spent with them. And I know this is bringing a bit of a grim tone to the episode, but I want everybody out there to understand that sacrifice is something you face in your daily life. That you will always, every time that you make a choice, you are choosing to let go of something else. And that's okay. But always make sure that before you make an action, before you take a step, you think, what am I giving up with this time or this effort? What could I be doing? Because you might do something wrong that you don't believe is right because you haven't thought about what else you could do.
Wow. One thing, though, I have to say is, even as you grow, we're not that old. Okay, we are not that old yet. And yet already I feel my life getting so busy chasing my dreams, sacrificing my time on entertainment for what I value more or deem worthy. But I've realized that as a kid, when I was sitting there playing games all the time, I gave up the time frame that I had to spend time with my family. And now as an adult, I start to realize that as you grow, you only have less and less time. And if you really think about it, you're losing it 4 times as fast. So think about it, right? If you're losing time with your family because you're pursuing more now, so you have to commit more time to these things. Let's say you half the amount of time that you spend with your family. Your parents only live so long. So now that's putting another time crunch on you. Because as you continue to grow older and take on more responsibility, their life continues to shrink. So you need to spend time with the people that matter when you have the chance. And that doesn't mean give up on your dreams. Of course not. I'd say that at the end of the day, you're still going to be here longer than them in an ideal situation. So certainly chase your dreams and live your life ambitiously. But don't forget about those things that matter. Because I feel like today's self-improvement space is all about forget about everybody. It's all about you. Sit in that dark room by yourself, study for 8 hours a day, or get on the phone and make every single business call you need to make sales, do all this stuff. I don't say that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing to be able to lock in and make money when you need to make money. Hell, the world revolves around money. As much as we may not want it to, it does. And at the end of the day, if you want to drive a Lambo, if you want to own a Rolex, that's the kind of effort it takes. But that doesn't mean that you forget the people that you knew before. I'll give you a very good example of this. Look at Joe Rogan. Why is Joe Rogan so successful? It's not just because he's a great commentator or a great interviewer or he knows how to run a business. No, it's because he's a good person. Everyone who's ever met Joe Rogan has nothing but nice things to say about him. Why do you think so many celebrities go on his podcast? It's because he's a nice guy. He knows how to talk to people without antagonizing them, asking them uncomfortable questions, and he knows how to be a genuinely good guy. Do you know what he did for Dana White at the very beginning of the UFC?
I don't know.
When Dana White first started the UFC, he talked to Joe and said, yeah, we're going to get these guys to fight, and I don't really know who to get to commentate. And Joe Rogan was like, dude, that's awesome. I'll do the commentating. He was like, really? I mean, I don't really have too much money, so I don't know how much I could pay you. That's what Dana said. And Joe said, dude, don't worry about paying me. So for the first 12 to 13 fights or cards, I guess, in UFC, Joe Rogan commentated those for free. And guess what? Now UFC is huge. It's probably one of the biggest sports out there in terms of pay-per-view. And Dana White never forgot that favor. That's why he and Joe Rogan are such good friends. He told this story on another podcast. So the same way, yes, it's nice to lock in, make money, and do it on your own. But it's very important to be kind to those around you and still care for people. Because any successful business person will tell you that business is about connections. So if you're unable to make those connections, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the world. That's why some things take more than money to buy. Take, for example, the McLaren or the Ferrari or the certain Lamborghinis. You need not just money. You could have all the money in the world, but if you don't know the right guy, he won't secure you that car. Why do you think Ferrari is so exclusive? Why do you think Rolex is so exclusive? These things require connections and people. So you can't just sacrifice all the people in the world so you can make all the money in the world. Those people are the least happy in life.
And also, I think a lot of us don't see how much the people around us sacrifice for us. Like, for example, take Joe Rogan. He sacrificed all the money he could have made to help a friend out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another experience I had the other day on the same shift where, I was taking this, it was this old woman, she came in with, like, her grandson to order food. And she asked for a filet. Or, well, the kid was asking, hey, can I get a filet, please, please, please. And then he's like, can I please get a meal? And she's like, okay. And then I put in, she's like, how much is it? And I was like, it's like $12. And then she was like, oh, no, we can't do that. And he was like really sad. And then she instead got him the junior chicken combo. And this kid was he was like, oh, I really want the filet. And he kept saying that. And the grandma's just like, no, we can't have it. Okay. And then he walked away a little bit sad. And I thought, when that kid grows up, he probably won't remember this day. And that made me reflect on my life. And I started to think, how many times have people in my life done things for me without the promise of return? And, the people around me, I realize have done so much for me. I have so many people around me that have done these things for me and inadvertently helped me without me even acknowledging it. And that leads me to believe that the best thing I can do is to go and do the same for others. So I say to all of you, go out there and search to help other people without the promise of return. That is what real good merits are. That's what a real good person does. That's why a lot of these celebrities, they go out and they give $10,000 to a homeless guy. This is not shots at like Mr. Beast for doing it or anything. And I think, yes, you're helping the world in a wonderful way. No doubts. But to film it and then post it, especially the people that do it that are fake, I think there's no need to post it, right? You could have done that off screen. You could have done it out of the good of your heart, but instead you do it for the promise of benefit. And that's why I think charity work is so nice if you just donate money to a charity. Because although I think there's some bad things about charities where sometimes they kind of scam you out of your money, but if for the most part, when people don't see your good deeds, that's when you really know what kind of a person you are. So people always say, your character's tested when nobody's watching. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, if you are able to do good things without anybody seeing or anybody praising you or anything coming back to you, that's truly the good of your heart. Sometimes you need to sacrifice the fame and the glory and, the pride to just do the right thing.
That's funny. As you were talking about going out and making somebody else's day, I was going to say, technically that does qualify as a personal sacrifice, whether it's the time or the money that it took to make that person's day. You gave that up from yourself to help somebody else. So clearly you deem that as more important or worthy of your time or money. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about humans is that we do have the ability to give. Now, the one thing I would like to say about Mr. Beast is the interesting thing about him is as he continues to post these on YouTube, he makes more and more money, but he still lives such a modest life and gives away majority of it to, subscribers, contestants on his shows or videos.
Philanthropy.
And just donating to people, giving them houses and stuff. I think that Mr. Beast is a very good person. Mm-hmm. And again, there are other people out there who took the Mr. Beast formula and copied it, and yet they don't do it for the kindness of their heart. They do it because they saw it worked.
And a lot of them don't do as well as he did.
Exactly.
Because he did it
genuinely
for a good reason.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, another thing that we often sacrifice is our present happiness. For example, suppose you have a test at the end of the week. I have a calculus test at the end of the week. And yet I don't stress. I know I need to study. I know that it's tough. And I know I'm not ready yet. But I don't bear any fear. Because I know that although it's coming, I can prepare for it. And there's a quote. And I don't think you'll be able to guess who said it. Okay. But I'll say the quote first. And what they say is, if you live in the future, you are anxious. If you live in the past, you are depressed. If you live in the now, you're happy. Do you know who said that quote?
I know who it is. Why don't I? I know who it is. Give me a hint.
I mean,
are they a real person or a fictional character?
Person. That's right.
Are they an actor?
I mean, technically now he is, but I'll say no. It's not his main endeavor.
John Cena?
No.
Okay. All right, I give up. Whatever. I don't want to take too much time.
You're kind of on a good train with John Cena. It was actually Conor McGregor.
Really? Yeah. Oh, man, that's where it was. Yeah, I saw it. Come on.
And I love that because I won't name drop anybody, but last week I did have a friend who, we were doing some work together, and we found out that things might not work out. And he got very worried about it. And he was thinking about this future, like, oh my God, what if it doesn't work out? And, there's another quote, and it says that if you suffer before it is necessary, you suffer more than is necessary. When things are in the future, they aren't determined. They don't exist. So why do we give value to things that literally do not exist? That's not saying don't or ignore it. It's to acknowledge its existence and find a way past it. Because you can't do anything to the future. No matter how much you think about it, no matter how much you stare at it, it will not change until you change the course you're on. You're walking in a straight line. If you keep staring at that brick wall in front of you, of course you're going to walk into it. But if you turn your eyes to the right and start walking in that direction, you change what you're doing now. When you change what you do now, that's when you can move past your obstacles. Or if you start looking on the ground and see, damn, now I got a hammer, I can break through this wall. Instead, you spend all your time looking at the damn wall. It ain't going anywhere, right? That's inevitable doom. My calculus test is on this Friday. If I sit here and I'm just like, damn, it's on Friday, man. Guess what? The test is going to be on Friday, right? Regardless of what I do, no matter how I try to look at it differently, that's reality. So why, instead of breaking through that brick wall, finding a ladder to climb over, or finding a path around, would I just keep walking in a straight line? Instead, don't sacrifice your present happiness for future pain. To me, that makes no sense. Instead, live in the now. What can I do now? And I think it's a cool concept that we never really fear what is happening right now. We always fear what is going to happen. And it's kind of scary because imagine you're walking at night and there's a guy following you, in a hood. And he's probably got a weapon on him somewhere, What you fear is that he's going to start chasing you. Now, let's suppose that fear realizes he starts chasing you and and now you fear he's got a weapon. Now he pulls out a weapon. Now you fear he's going to attack you with that weapon. Let's suppose that he corners you and, slashes you with a knife. Now you're laying there on the ground. You are now in the fear of dying. Every single one of those fears is what will happen next, not what is currently happening. We are very afraid of the future. And, that future is very close sometimes. It could be very far sometimes. And I'm not saying smile while being chased by a killer. Obviously, natural instinct is going to tell you to fear. It's more of an analogy that we are going to fear what will happen. But what will happen hasn't happened, right? This future doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is this exact moment in time where you are right now. So why would you give up that happiness for something that might not even happen? Logically, it makes no sense.
Well, if you think about it, when you're worrying so much about the future, you could technically be changing it by how you act right now. Even in science fiction films and series, take The Flash, for instance, if you were to change the past, the future changes, right? So if you change the present, same thing, the future will change. So instead of worrying, oh my God, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, why don't you start preparing for it? That's the simplest way I could tell anybody worrying about a test. Hell, you're not the only person who's got tests. It's final exam season. I'm about to drown in studying for the next 2 weeks. Am I worried? Nope, because I actually studied earlier. I started studying earlier because I learned my lesson the last couple of times where all I did was stress about the exam. Until the last couple of days, I try to cram 12 hours each day, and then I go to the exam dead trying to write it. But I learned my lesson. And again, that's another lesson we teach here, is learn from your mistakes. So my next question to you is, why do you think people sacrifice? Why would you give up something that matters to you? Because, like we said, you're giving up something of value, of importance. So why give it up in the first place?
Well, I'd say simple answer is because you're in search of something that you think has more value.
That's a good answer.
Isn't that like in the definition? Like
well,
the dictionary
yes,
definition?
but I'm asking you sort of a different perspective on it. My approach to it was, you're giving it up for something, right? But it also could be someone. Like you mentioned in the introduction, Joe Rogan giving up the money for his friend, Dana White. The same way we'd sacrifice certain things for our friends or the people we care about the most. I think that those people could be a very strong reason as to why you'd give certain things up.
I think that I completely agree because I think what I think that means is we value people over possessions, or at least I think we should.
Yeah.
Right. Joe Rogan valued his friendship with Dana White over the money, or the success of his friend over the money. So I'd say those are traits that we should all pick up, is to value the people around you and to help them out when they need it. And don't always think that the world is a give and take place, right? It's not a dog-eat-dog world. Although that's what everybody wants you to believe, you can take care of other people. You can do things without the promise of return. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Well, it's true. It really is. And I think that that's the interesting thing about success. Or I'd say, well, yeah, any kind of success, but it's more true for that astronomical success of reaching that top 1%, is that you do have to give certain things up. And it's a quote from David Goggins. He said, "When the distance is unknown, how far are you willing to run?" That's important because think about it. How much are you willing to give up? Nothing in this life is promised.
Yeah.
As Kanye West famously said, nothing in life is promised except death. So when you set this goal, I want to reach this spot, you got to understand that you might have to give up a lot more than the last guy who did it or a lot less than the last guy who did it. But you don't know. All you do know is that you have to give something up and you have to work hard to get there. So when you do set out on a certain path, know this, follow this, and see where it takes you.
I think, yeah, it's definitely putting putting value
Maybe
on.
you need a cup of tea.
I might need a cup of tea, but putting value on people over possessions. And another cool thing, I was kind of relating back to what I was talking about with the future. Another thing is the past, right? We often get hung up on the past, but there's a quote where I heard it says, "The rear view is for glancing, not staring." When you're driving a car, what happens if you stare in the rear view mirror?
Rear-ending the person in front of you.
Exactly. Or
Yep.
crashing in any manner, getting T-boned at an intersection,
That's true.
right? All these things happen because you're too focused on what's in the past.
That's so funny because just to interject for a
Yeah,
second,
no.
I remember one of my worst moments driving. I was driving down the road and I saw the two Lamborghini Huracans right next to each other. And I was telling my passenger, "Yo, take a video, take a video." They start recording and I'm staring at it. And then I look back, oh, Jesus. And I had to slam on the brakes because I was like not paying attention. I was looking at the cars. So it's very important to look where you're going
Yeah.
because you're not going to see the obstacles in front of you if you're looking in another direction,
So
like you
both,
said.
like literally and metaphorically,
Yeah.
look forward, right? But still live within your car. Because imagine if you just stopped your car in the middle of the road and then like, damn, that's a pretty sick red light over there. People are gonna start rear-ending you, right?
Yeah.
Or you're gonna get T-boned somewhere because you're stopped in the wrong place. So keep moving forward with your life, but be aware of where you are right now. Understand that the past is a great teacher, and the future could be a great promise, but don't get caught up on those things. Live now and be happy.
That's a very important lesson, is to live now. I feel like we're going to say that in many episodes as we go along, but it's a quote from this guy on Instagram. His name is Dr. Michael Kulitz, okay? I'll pop his Instagram up for anybody watching the video, but he's a very fascinating guy. He's a doctor and definitely owns some businesses, I want to say, because he owns some insane cars. Like, he's old, he's got gray hair, and he's, what you'd expect your typical doctor to look like. I guess slightly older in age because it took so long to get education for all that. But he's such a wise man. It is unbelievable. I remember the first video I ever watched by him, I was in awe. I think there are some people who just inspire you in a way that nobody else really does. Like, it just lights that spark in your head. But what he said this time was, plan for the future, but live in the moment. And he's saying this because even though he drives all these fancy cars and everything like that, it didn't come just from living in the moment. It is critical to plan. If you say, I'm living in the moment, I'm living in the moment, I'm living in the moment, and you don't think about anything in front of you, that's the same as always looking back or just looking down. What are you going to do? You're going to crash, right? You got to look through your windshield to see what's in front of you. But at the same time, also, don't get too caught up on the light that's 3 lights down. Focus on the light you're coming up to right now. That's what it means to live in the moment. So you have to have that element of balance. It has to have some planning, but it also has to have living in the moment.
Yeah.
The truth is, especially for kids going through university, I'll say it now, especially as a third year who still doesn't know my exact path that I want to take, it is very imperative that you plan something at least a little bit before you go into university. My first 2 years, I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do. Absolutely no clue. I have a few options now, but even now, I'm not dead set on anything. if I was to go back to grade 12 and tell myself one thing, it would be sit down and figure out at least an idea of something you might be interested in doing. It doesn't have to be a hard set plan. This is where I'm going to go, but at least a goal.
Yeah.
You zone out so like you're like
What?
this,
No, I was thinking about something.
pondering.
Yeah, I am pondering. I'm always pondering.
You know, the another interesting thing I was thinking about is when you're comfortable with somebody, you can share like those odd moments. And also when you're less concerned with what people are thinking. For example, in our first couple of episodes, I definitely would not have done that because I'm like, oh my God, people are going to look at us a certain way. It's going to be
Yeah.
weird. But now that I'm kind of in my groove doing this because I love it, because I enjoy it, and sharing it with the people who support us, I'm kind of totally fine doing that. And you know who showed me that? It was Ryan Higa, because he was always waffling, doing random things, taking bathroom breaks in the middle of the episode. And it's funny because I watched his like trailer episode and he never released the full proper first episode of the podcast until a year later.
Actually?
Yeah, or a year or two later. That's when he released it. But he did release our first podcast episode at the very beginning in like 2019. Gotta say, he was very ahead of the whole podcasting curve, I think.
Yeah.
He was ahead of his time. Gotta respect the man, though, honestly. He stopped doing YouTube because he didn't enjoy it anymore. He started doing podcasts because that's what he liked. He wanted to have conversations with people. And that's a very interesting thing to say and a very deep topic to go into, because think about it. He had all the subscribers, all the money, all the fame he could have wanted. He dominated YouTube for almost a decade.
Yeah.
But no, over a decade. That channel is 13 years old.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't say you dominated the whole time.
Okay, let's
But
say a
I'd
decade.
say definitely
A decade,
Yeah,
okay?
that's fair.
He dominated YouTube for a decade. He had all the money ever. Ryan Higa could have easily continued to pump out these videos that he didn't enjoy and make infinite money. But what did he do? He sacrificed that to do something he loved. And I think that's what we should all do. Now, it doesn't mean just give up on certain things that you need to. Like, don't just quit your job because you want to go sing on the streets. Make smart decisions. But also learn to sacrifice when you need to. And learn to value your opinion more than somebody else's. Because remember, sacrifice is personalized. It's subjective. What do you value? What do you see as a worthy sacrifice? Because if I see, hey, it's worth spending my days learning how to invest so that I don't have to worry about money later in my life, that I'll sacrifice my time to do that. But if the guy down the street says, hey, it's worth my time to sit here and play Call of Duty, that's up to him. He can use the time how he wants. So for you, find what's important and do that. Don't let anybody else tell you what is more important than this.
And it's a really cool thing is I found this. I guess I didn't really. Well, there's a quote I'll say, and it goes: "You can keep a tree alive, but should never dictate where it grows. If every tree looked the same, none would bear any beauty." So trees, actually, oh my God, I can connect this. So I wrote that because I was just thinking about it.
You wrote that.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about how a lot of parents like to, force where their child goes. But I think that children are like plants and they need to be nurtured. They need to be taken care of, because without any water or, any proper treatment, proper soil, proper roots, they aren't going to grow. But if you put two massive or a steel pole box up with that tree, of course it's going to grow up to be that box. But is that what that tree was destined to do? And in Kung Fu Panda, it's a big theme in the first movie. Shifu is stuck trying to teach Po how to be the Dragon Warrior. And he's like, and Shifu's asking Oogway, he's like, Master, how am I supposed to turn this guy into the Dragon Warrior? And then Oogway said, what happens when you plant a peach seed? He said, you may wish for an apple or an orange, but you will get a peach. And then Shifu says, a peach cannot defeat Tai Lung. And then Oogway says, it can if you nurture it, right? And in the same way, like this is an exact direct parallel, is that you should actively go out there and search to nurture those around you. And this is mostly catered, I'd say, to the parents out there, is do not control where children go. Guide them. Nurture them. Give them advice when they need it. Give them help when they're astray. but do not force them down the path that you believe is right. Because what someone is destined to do is something you will only find later. And like I said in my quote, where if every tree looked the same, none would bear any beauty. If you make a cookie cutter kid that anybody else could have, what's really the value in that? Because what did you say at the beginning of this episode? What did you talk about? Does scarcity determine value? And I think, yeah, being an individual person makes you your own unique guy. There's nobody else out there like you. That's the reality, is you're your own person. Even identical twins are oftentimes a lot more different than people like to imagine. So you have been set apart from this populace of 8 billion people. And you mean to tell me that you want to be exactly like someone you're not? Because you're selling the whole world short by trying to be somebody else. Because guess what? Now there's 2 of you, right? Or maybe there's 100 of you. Maybe there's 200. Maybe there's 1 billion of you out there because you never did what you were destined to do. Because I think that destiny is a funny thing. It's a thing that is individualized. I know you thought I was going to go into the I roll quote, but I didn't because it's not what I'm talking about. But I think actually, you can connect it here because what Iro says is that, destiny is a funny thing. You may think you know your own destiny, but if you keep an open mind and an open heart, then I'm sure you will find your own destiny someday. So look within yourself and find your real destiny because nobody else can dictate or nobody else should dictate where you grow.
Check.
Mate?
Boom. What did I say? I said you were going to lead it into the quote, and you led it into the quote.
Yeah, fair play.
Get baited, buddy.
Oh, man, you didn't really say you were going to lead into the quote.
I looked at you, and you knew, and you did it anyway, so that's even worse.
Well, because it was worth it. It was for the viewers. Okay, I'm just a kind person.
That's true. The funny thing is, I was actually thinking of another quote about... What was it? About... Wait. What was the quote about?
I don't know, Kung Fu Panda?
No, the quote you just said.
What are you talking about? It's about...
Destiny. That's what it was. I was thinking about Kung Fu Panda and saying that one often meets his destiny on the path he takes to avoid it. That's what I was thinking about. But you played yourself anyways with my smile, and now...
Oh, I guess that's actually pretty cool.
You canned yourself.
Yeah, fair play. That's also such a cool thing. Like, in the Kung Fu... I know I'm kind of going on a rant about Kung Fu Panda, but, like, I think that one quote, that one often meets his road on... often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it, is even better embodied in the second movie. Because Shen, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Kung Fu Panda 2 by now, what are you doing with your life? We've referenced it 100 million times. Like, get to it, okay? But Kung Fu Panda 2, Lord Shen kills all the pandas because he's told by truth, or what are they called? Teller? Well, yeah, but like a soothsayer or something like that.
Yeah, that's the perfect word. Damn. Right?
And that always he's going to be defeated by a warrior of black and white. And by killing all the pandas, he leads Po on the path to become the dragon warrior. If he had never acted out in that anger to do that, then he never would have had that problem.
As you said many episodes ago, he would have just been in the panda village doing panda things.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you don't remember?
No,
you told this exact story, and that's what you said. You followed it up with, Po would be in the panda village doing panda things.
That's true, he would have been. But instead, he became the Dragon Warrior.
Oh, man.
Just speaks volumes about how good that series is.
That's
and the life lessons that come with it.
That's very true.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. I had 2 very, very irritating mornings back to back. Now, trust me, I'll come back to sacrifice and how this all connects. But let me tell you the story, okay? I wake up, and I go downstairs, and I go to school. As I get in the car, I go to plug my phone in to the aux cord so I can listen to my daily stock market podcast. As I go to plug it in, I'm like, wait a minute, where's my adapter? Because, new stupid iPhones don't have the aux cord thing anymore, so you need the adapter, which I always keep in the car. But it's gone. So I texted you. You said you didn't take it. I texted our father. He didn't take it. Texted my mother. She didn't take it. Now I'm wondering where the hell did this thing go? It just vanished into thin air. Now I'm mildly irritated, okay? I also didn't sleep too well the night before, so I'm kind of double irritated now. I go throughout the rest of the day Other things start to bother me. There's construction on literally every road. So I'm slowed down. School was annoying. Overall, just a very irritating day. But I went to sleep. The next day I woke up, and that was the day that I went to take you to school. We leave. Construction on a main road. Okay, fine. We'll go to the next one. I drop you off, and then I'm like, okay, I got to go to school now. As I go to leave, oh, I can't go this way. There's construction. Let me take this road. Oh, I can't go that way either. There's construction. Cool. Let me take this one. Oh, it's backed up all the way. I crank a U-turn to leave that road after I'd waited for 5 minutes because I knew I was not going anywhere if I waited any longer. I crank a U-turn, go down to the next road, try to go up that road, and it's backed up too. So I literally pulled off to the side of the road, parked the car, and I sat there like this. Okay, what am I going to do now? I turned around and went home. I did not go to school that day. Now, that's not to say give up when things get hard, but sometimes,
bad image right now,
sometimes a lot just piles up on you. I know that a lot of you have experienced this on days where you get overwhelmed, where it's just a lot on you, a lot of pressure, a lot of things happen. So I went home. Now, what did I do with my time? Now, a lot of this self-help stuff, there's two sides to it, I think. There's a soft side and the extremely hard side. Now, I think, as always, you need to go to the middle. Did you give me that weird look because you wanted to say pause?
No, continue.
I'm going to throw something at you, okay?
Continue.
Anyways, point is, either it's one side that says, listen to your feelings, cry, everything is going to be okay. The other side says, no crying, get to work, blah, 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 okay? Meet in the middle. So for me, what I did was I got overwhelmed, so I came home and I started brainstorming for the podcast. Came up with a bunch of ideas, studied for an hour, and got a lot of work done in that time that I didn't go to school. So to me, I sacrificed my school time to come home and work on something else. A lot of people, when they get overwhelmed or are down on their luck, sacrifice that time to goof off or relax. Just because one thing didn't work out doesn't mean that you have to give up on the rest of the things that you need to do. People get so worried about one avenue not working out. Like your friend, for example, who said, hey, what if this idea doesn't work? That means my world is over. There's still many other paths to take and many other things you can focus your time on. So when you run into a problem, don't just give up and fall back below where you were before. Take a step back, evaluate the situation, and then take the best option from there. I always say, life is like a game of chess. It's not always about making the right moves, but more so about avoiding the wrong ones.
Indubitably.
And the funny thing about that is people who don't play chess won't get that. Now, again, I feel like if you're a chess master and you think I'm wrong, I'll take your opinion for it.
Yeah.
But I personally think that it's better to make a decent move. Wait, no, it's more important to avoid blunders than it is to consistently make decent moves, if that makes sense.
Well, I feel like avoiding it, but I'd say you should say making brilliant moves.
Yeah.
It's better to make a good move.
Okay, it's better to avoid a blunder than to make a brilliant move.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think that's fair. And, one thing that I guess it sort of pertains to this, it's about sadness, and it's something I learned recently, and I definitely want to go more in depth on this topic because we're kind of running short on time right now. But it's about what sadness really is. And it's funny because sadness is actually an illusion. And this is something we will definitely discuss way more in depth on probably the next episode. I'd really like to talk about it.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. You have me very hooked here. I'm very interested. Please tell us the story.
Sadness doesn't exist.
Okay.
All sadness is a lack of happiness. Your body or your brain produces oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and dopamine. Those are the 4 chemicals that make you happy. And what they do is they shoot your brain up to this state of happiness, and it comes back down. And then, you do your next happy thing, it goes up. Next time it goes down, goes up, goes down. Where you feel sadness is in those valleys. But if you think about it as a chart, let's say you have sorry, Mike, but if you have a chart, right, here and here, okay? This is your happiness level, like how happy you are, okay? So if you're above this line, you're happy, right? And you've got, your baseline here. So this is your time, okay? Time versus happiness graph.
Okay.
So you do something that makes you really happy over a certain amount of time, you go up to here. That thing is done. Your happiness level goes down here. Then you do the next thing that makes you happy. And then the next thing and the next thing. And it keeps going this spike kind of pattern. Up and down, up and down, up and down. But if you observe that graph, what you'll notice is nothing actually brings you below that line. It's the absence of something that brings you above it. For example, your day trying to get to school. That was a pain. It sucked. You couldn't go anywhere. The reason why that hurts so much is because normally you slam it on the freeway and boom, you're at school. Right? Normally you don't have to go through all that traffic. Normally you don't have to deal with that. Normally your journey is a lot smoother. But this time it wasn't. How does that make you feel? It makes you feel worse. This may seem like it's an obvious thing, but the truth is sadness doesn't exist. So again, I bring us back to one sentence. Why sacrifice your happiness over something that doesn't exist? Just as we often sacrifice our happiness for the future, the past, and negative emotions, we are sacrificing things that we have now, things that we are holding on to, for things that we will never reach.
Damn. I'm not gonna lie. I was very skeptical at first because I was thinking, okay, let me play the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
What happens when something tragic happens to you? Let's say a family member passes away. Don't you argue that brings you below baseline?
I'll put you right here is you, right? You're my best friend, my brother, right? Every day we talk, there's no days that we don't have a conversation.
That's true.
So how would I feel when you die? Right? You pass away. What is that feeling that I get? That sadness that we assume. It's not that it's because it is because you're gone. But it's because I no longer have the things I had with you. The ability to talk to you. Your presence around me. Those are missing now. Right? This podcast would be missing without you. Right? So all these beautiful, happy things that I had with you are now gone. So what was holding me at such a high is now just another thing that's gone. Because I'd say my happiness level is well above that 0 line right now. Because I have you and other people in my life. So if I were to lose those people, that would definitely bring me down. And that is what would cause so much sadness for me.
You know what? Fair play. That was a very good argument to make.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. As always, thank you for sticking around to the end. And as a reward, you know what time it is.
It's time for Quote
of
the
Week.
Hiram.
All right. Quote of the week is, if you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice.
Wow.
You've never heard that before?
No, never.
Interesting. Well, I think it's slightly overused.
Who's it from?
I actually don't know the original creator. I tried to find it, but literally everybody has said it, so whatever. But funny enough, I thought that you were going to say the quote in the episode. So I had a backup quote as well, just in case.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to say it for a future episode.
We gotta gatekeep it. You guys are going
to gatekeep it. You guys will hear it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But hit him with the outro. My nose is running. I want to leave.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 18 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. Make sure you go out there and sacrifice for the people around you and for yourself to move yourself forward in your journey. And before we go, you have one more thing to say?
Yes. Before we leave, I just wanted to say shout out to you guys. Thank you so much. We just crossed 150 subscribers. Another big milestone. I'm sick, but I promise you we're going to keep pumping out the good content. Why? Because number one, we enjoy it. And number two, you guys have given us unmatched support in our first couple months of doing this. Already we have 150 subscribers. We appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. And continue to take lessons from this and tell us how we do. We love you guys.
We really appreciate the sacrifice and, the sacrifice of your time for, watching our things. And I hope that they do benefit you in a great way. But, as always, make sure you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.